I still remember the moment I received the email, more vividly than the night I signed the $20 million deal that was supposed to be the highlight of my year. I was sitting in a quiet hotel lobby in Singapore, just past 9 p.m. local time. My laptop was open, half-packed documents spread across the marble coffee table, and my phone buzzed with congratulations from the team back in New York. I had just returned from a client dinner. Sake, handshakes, laughter. The deal was signed. After 7 months of relentless work, I had done it. Secured a massive expansion for our firm. $20 million locked in. I should have felt victorious. Instead, I opened my inbox and froze. Subject line: termination of employment, effective immediately. At first, I thought it was a joke, or a scam, or maybe some HR intern hit the wrong name. But then I read the message. Ashley, effective immediately, your employment with Stratwell Partners is terminated. Please cease all company communications and return your laptop and company property upon return. Your final paycheck and severance information will be mailed to your home address. Best of luck. HR department. No salutation, no context, no thank you. Just cold. My hands hovered over the keyboard as if they had forgotten how to type. My chest tightened, and for a second I actually laughed. Not because it was funny, because it felt absurd. I had just landed the biggest international contract in the company's history. I had led that deal alone. No backup, no co-lead, just me. And now they were firing me? I sat back, heart pounding, trying to absorb the shock. They didn't even have the decency to call. I reached for my phone and scrolled through my messages. Nothing from my boss, no voicemail, no text. Just backslaps and "you did it" from people who clearly didn't know what HR had just done behind closed doors. For a moment, I felt the panic bubbling up. Years of dedication unraveling in a single sentence. I thought of the weekends spent in airports, the birthdays missed, the nights I'd fallen asleep at my desk, building client relationships from scratch. And now this? They didn't even ask me to come home. They just erased me. I closed my eyes and inhaled deeply. I could cry. I could call someone. I could even respond with some emotional outburst, demanding an explanation. But instead, I opened my bag, pulled out the red folder that contained the newly signed $20 million contract, and placed it gently on the table. Then I smiled. Because that's when it hit me. They didn't know what I knew. They didn't understand what they'd just done. You see, that contract I'd closed wasn't just a standard deal. It was the key to something much bigger. A cascade. 5 major clients were poised to follow suit, waiting on my go-ahead. And Stratwell hadn't looped anyone else in. On paper, those clients weren't official yet. But I knew them. I had spent nearly a year cultivating those relationships. One dinner, one crisis, one sleepless night at a time. And now, I was no longer bound by their NDAs, no longer obligated to stay loyal to a company that didn't even have the guts to tell me to my face. I picked up my phone. Not to call them, but to start writing down everything I had built. Not to burn bridges, but to make sure they understood who they had just cut loose. And then I did something they never expected. I went to sleep. I turned off my phone, closed the laptop, ignored the mounting notifications from Slack. And I slept for 10 solid hours for the first time in months. When I woke up the next morning, it wasn't with rage. It was with clarity. They wanted me gone? Fine. But they were about to learn what happens when you fire the wrong person. Because in exactly 48 hours, 5 of our largest prospective clients would make decisions that didn't include Stratwell. And unlike them, I knew exactly how to move quietly. This wasn't revenge. This was cause and effect. And it had already begun. I checked out of the hotel at 11 a.m. the next morning. No calls, no apologies, no explanations. Just a receipt, a polite smile from the concierge, and a business card slipped discreetly into my hand by the manager. He'd overheard part of my negotiation at the dinner 2 nights before and said if I ever wanted a partner in Asia, he knew people. I didn't keep the card out of vanity. I kept it because I had a feeling I'd need it. I boarded my flight back to New York with a calm expression and noise-canceling headphones, but inside my mind raced. Not with panic, but with precision. I reviewed the names in my mental ledger. 5 high-profile clients. 5 companies that were weeks, days, some even hours away from signing with Stratwell. And all of them had one thing in common. Me. Not the logo on my business card. Me. I had been the one they trusted. I was the one they called after hours during crises when internal politics made everything impossible. I learned their pain points, their time zones, their kids' names. I spoke their language, literally and figuratively. I didn't sell them a product. I solved problems before they had names. Stratwell didn't get that. Or maybe they did. And they didn't care. But that ignorance was about to cost them more than a severance package. When I landed at JFK, I turned on my phone. 3 missed calls. All from Eric, my former direct manager. That surprised me. He'd been the one who vouched for me when I first joined the firm. He wasn't flashy, but he understood loyalty. If he was calling, it wasn't out of guilt. It was fear. I didn't call him back. Instead, I forwarded the $20 million contract, signed, scanned, and flawless, to my personal email and deleted the message from my company account. Then I opened WhatsApp and sent 5 messages, each one short. Let's talk. Privately. Something happened. Within 10 minutes, 3 of them had responded. By morning, all 5 had. They weren't shocked I'd been fired. They were furious. One of them, Lena, the CFO of a German logistics firm, called me directly. Her voice was clipped. We trusted you, Ashley, not your employer. If they've removed you from the process, we're pulling our interest. Full stop. I nodded slowly. I understand. That's your right. Number, I don't think you do. She snapped. We only stayed in this circus because of you. I've already instructed our legal team to halt contract execution until we reevaluate our options. That was 1 client down. I didn't convince her to stay. I didn't have to. That night, I sat in my apartment, surrounded by unopened luggage and untouched mail. It was nearly midnight when I got the first internal email forwarded by a friend still at Stratwell. Subject line, urgent. Client meeting changes. Apparently, the Kingsley pitch had gone silent. Then a second email. A panicked internal memo from the sales director. Does anyone know why Ashley's contact at Orion hasn't responded to confirm the signing meeting? We were supposed to close by end of day. I leaned back in my chair, eyes burning from the screen. They didn't know yet. They thought this was just bad timing. A fluke. They didn't know the storm was coordinated. And still, I didn't lash out. I didn't post online. I didn't leak the email or burn bridges. I was building something else. I called my lawyer the next morning. Yes, my lawyer. One I'd quietly hired 6 months earlier when I first sensed the undercurrents of change within Stratwell. The reshuffling. The performance reviews that suddenly included vague collaboration concerns. The rumors of budget cuts masked as optimization. Her name was Valerie, and Valerie was brutal when needed. She picked up on the second ring. Ashley? I need a clause review. I said calmly, I want to know what's mine and what isn't, especially regarding client portfolios and intellectual property. There was a pause. Then, send me everything. By noon, I'd compiled the materials, contracts, emails, decks, even a pitch video I'd recorded that was never officially used. The material wasn't confidential. It was mine, created on my own time, crafted with my own voice. And that mattered. Because while Stratwell had fired me, coldly, carelessly, they hadn't stripped me of the relationships I'd built. They hadn't taken the trust. And trust in business is more powerful than signatures. They thought I'd cry, beg. They had no idea what I was doing in the quiet. They didn't know I was laying the foundation of a collapse that would shake their core. not out of vengeance, but out of inevitability. Because in exactly 48 hours, the fallout would begin, and I wouldn't have to lift a finger. I had already done the work. It started with a missed call, then another, then 6. By the time I woke up on Friday morning, 48 hours after the termination email, I had 37 notifications. Most were from unfamiliar numbers. A few were internal Stratwell extensions. One was from Eric. I didn't answer any of them. Instead, I opened my laptop and logged in to a private workspace I'd created over a year ago. Something I'd built out of necessity when I realized I was doing more than my job title ever reflected. I had started documenting workflows, client preferences, strategy drafts, and negotiation templates. Not because I planned to leave, but because I'd learned, painfully, that loyalty without backup is a dangerous thing. There were no secrets in those files, just proof of effort. Proof that I was the architect behind the pipeline. Stratwell was now watching fall apart. At 9:14 a.m., my phone buzzed again. A message from Nicole, my former teammate and close friend. We hadn't spoken since I left for Singapore. "Hey, things are insane here. The Kingsley team pulled out this morning, like full withdrawal. Said they lost faith in leadership. You okay?" I stared at the screen. There it was. The first crack. I called her back. "Nicole," I said calmly, "what exactly did they say?" They told our executive team they were reconsidering vendors, mentioned lack of continuity, trust issues, and a key partner no longer being present. I raised an eyebrow. "They used that phrase? Key partner?" "Yeah," she whispered. "They didn't say your name, but everyone knew." I leaned back in my chair, heart steady. "And the team?" "Eric's been pale since 8 a.m. The VP is screaming behind closed doors. Legal's scrambling to figure out how they lost 2 deals in 24 hours. 2? Yeah. Orion backed out too. And word is, the French account's reviewing their contract now." I stayed quiet. Nicole hesitated. "Did you—" "No," I cut in. "I didn't tell them to walk, but I also didn't ask them to stay." Silence. Then she exhaled. "Good for you." We ended the call, and I let the stillness settle. I knew the pattern. Corporations panic when money disappears, not people. But now they were learning that in some cases, those two things are the same. By 11 a.m., it was a full-on firestorm. Valerie called. "They just issued a statement to internal leadership blaming market volatility for the lost deals," she said, a laugh in her voice. "Cute." "Let them spin," I replied. "The truth will settle louder." And it did. At 1:22 p.m., Lena, the German CFO, posted a statement on LinkedIn. She didn't name me, but she didn't need to. Her words were surgical. "Trust is the cornerstone of any business relationship. When that trust is undermined, through arrogance, mismanagement, or a failure to recognize people as more than tools, partnership becomes impossible. We value integrity over contracts, people over paperwork." It went viral within 2 hours. Comments flooded in from professionals across industries. I saw phrases like quiet professionalism, silent backbone, and corporate accountability. And I wasn't even tagged. Stratwell didn't issue a response. They couldn't. Because the moment they acknowledged it, they admitted the wound. Instead, they tried to do damage control behind the scenes. I know this because another client reached out to me directly, one who hadn't even signed with Stratwell yet, but had been deep in negotiations. "Ashley," he said, his voice calm but urgent. "We were close to finalizing with Stratwell. Now we're hearing conflicting stories. I'd like to understand what's really going on, off the record." So I told him. Nothing exaggerated, just the facts. I told him how I was fired by email, how I hadn't been thanked for the deal I closed, how 5 clients, all of whom I had built from the ground up, had been left without a transition plan. He listened in silence. Then he said, "That's all I needed to know." By Friday evening, Stratwell's client portal went offline for an hour. A glitch? Number A reset. They were trying to buy time. trying to hold on to contracts that were dissolving faster than they could react. And yet, I didn't celebrate, because it didn't feel like a win. It felt like truth catching up. They fired me because they assumed I had no leverage. They forgot I had something more powerful than position. I had earned loyalty, and loyalty doesn't die with a termination letter. It lingers, it remembers, and eventually, it walks away. By Monday morning, the silence from Stratwell was deafening. No press release, no apology, not even a vague internal memo. Just a quiet, frantic scramble behind closed doors, leaks patched, scripts rehearsed, damage assessed. But outside those glass walls, the story was already moving without them. By now, 4 out of the 5 clients had walked. 1, Xenotech, hadn't publicly declared their decision, but I knew it was coming. Their CEO, Rashid, had been unusually quiet. And when someone like Rashid goes quiet, it's never a good sign. Still, I didn't reach out. I wasn't playing the hero. I wasn't playing anything. I was simply watching. And then, around 10:42 a.m., my phone rang. Blocked number. I almost let it go to voicemail, but something told me to pick up. Ashley Harris? The voice said. Yes. This is Annabelle Hart. I'm the managing partner at Elbridge & Rowe. I paused. Elbridge & Rowe wasn't just another firm. They were Stratwell's biggest competitor, and the one they constantly dismissed in internal meetings as old money with no edge. Funny. Apparently old money had teeth. I hope I'm not catching you at a bad time, she continued. I cleared my throat. Depends on the purpose of the call. There was a smile in her voice when she replied, I'd like to meet. Today. In person. We met at a rooftop cafe in Midtown. Private, quiet, no branding. Just 2 professionals in tailored coats and guarded expressions. She didn't waste time. We've been following the fallout, she said. We know Stratwell lost Kingsley, Orion, and Westmark. We also know you were the lead on all 3. I sipped my tea, not confirming anything. Annabelle leaned in slightly. Let me be clear. We don't want to use you. We want to work with you. There's a difference. I raised an eyebrow. Go on. You've spent years building trust with global clients. You've shown discretion, strategy, and restraint. And now you've shown something more valuable than any resume. Proof that clients follow people, not companies. She opened a sleek leather folder and slid it across the table. Inside, a proposed role. Executive Director of Global Strategy. Autonomy. Oversight. A team of 12. And a budget that made my eyes pause for half a second longer than I wanted to reveal. I didn't ask for this, I said. I know, she replied. That's why you're the right person. I closed the folder slowly. You should know, I'm not interested in burning Stratwell to the ground. She smiled. I'm not asking you to. I'm asking you to build something better. That word stuck with me. Building, not fix, not repair. Building, for the past 5 years, I had been the invisible scaffolding holding Stratwell's expansion upright. And now, without me, they were collapsing under their own weight. It wasn't personal. It was physics. I didn't give Annabelle an answer that day. I told her I'd think about it. And I meant it. Not because I doubted the offer, but because I wanted to do this on my terms. Later that afternoon, I got a call from Eric. I let it ring out. Then he texted. I know you're angry. I didn't know about the termination. Please, call me. I didn't reply. Instead, I opened my laptop and checked the latest industry update. Headline, Stratwell hemorrhages key accounts in wake of leadership shakeup. Internal instability suspected. There was no mention of me, but every quote, every whisper between the lines led back to my exit. I didn't need credit. I had clarity. I thought of the nights I worked until my hands ached, the deals I saved with a single phone call, the loyalty I gave to a company that reduced me to a subject line. And now? Now I had a choice. For the first time in years, I wasn't surviving. I was steering. And while Stratwell tried to save face, I was already looking toward what came next. Not to prove anything, but because I finally remembered something I'd buried beneath years of meetings and deadlines. I was never just an employee. I was the engine, and they fired me mid-flight. I didn't sleep much that night. Not because I was anxious, but because I was clear. So clear it felt electric. I paced my apartment like a chess player, replaying every move, every email, every meeting where I'd been talked over, written off, or handed someone else's script. That part of my life was over. At 7:12 a.m., I sent one email. Just one. Subject: my terms. It was addressed to Annabelle Hart. Annabelle, thank you for the conversation. I've reviewed your proposal. Before I can move forward, I'd like to add a few conditions. 1. I build my own team, no hand-me-downs. 2. No signing bonuses, but I want performance equity. 3. A development budget for mentorship and internal advocacy. And lastly, I don't want to be used as a headline. I want the results to speak first. If that aligns, we're in business. Ashley Harris. Her reply came 34 minutes later. Ashley, consider it done. Welcome aboard. I stared at the screen for a long moment. There it was. My next chapter. No drama, no applause. Just a door, opening on my terms. Still, I wasn't naive. Stratwell wouldn't go down quietly. At 10:04 a.m., I received another email. This one from legal@stratwellpartners.com. Subject: urgent, contractual concerns. The body of the email was a flurry of formal phrases and veiled accusations. Something about intellectual property. Something about misappropriation of client relationships. I read it twice. Then I laughed, because I knew exactly what they were doing. They were trying to rattle me, trying to intimidate me into silence. But this time, I had a different response. I forwarded the email to Valerie. She called me 2 minutes later, already furious. They're bluffing, she said. They have no legal ground, no contract breach, and no evidence. They're panicking because you were the strategy. And now you're gone. I know, I said calmly. Let's not escalate. Let's document everything. Always, she replied. Later that afternoon, I received a call from an unknown number. This time, I picked up. Ashley. It was Eric. His voice was strained, hollow. Not angry, just exhausted. Please, he said. Can we talk? There was a pause. Then he added, I didn't want this to happen to you. I let the silence stretch. Then, but you didn't stop it either. He sighed. I didn't. I was told it was just restructuring, that you'd be offered a transfer after the Singapore deal closed. I didn't know they were going to fire me by email, I said flatly. He didn't respond. I continued. You know what's wild, Eric? They thought I'd cry. They thought I'd crawl back and say, please don't erase me. They forgot something important. What's that? That I was never fighting for a seat at their table. I was building my own. There was a pause. Then, more quietly, they're not going to survive this, you know. That's not my concern, I said. I'm not tearing them down. I just stopped holding them up. He exhaled again. Good luck, Ashley. I don't need luck, I replied. Just peace. We hung up, and that was the last time I heard his voice. 2 days later, Stratwell's stock took a hit. A minor one, but telling. Whispers turned to chatter. The fifth client, Xenotech, issued a statement that ended with a quiet dagger. We do not comment on internal decisions of other companies. However, strategic alignment requires leadership we can trust. We look forward to exploring new partnerships. That same afternoon, I walked into my new office. Temporary, bare, with one chair and a borrowed desk lamp. It wasn't glamorous. It wasn't polished. But it was mine. I plugged in my laptop, opened a blank document, and for the first time in years, started writing strategy not to prove myself, but because I wanted to build something that outlived the politics, the egos, and the boys' club. I wasn't going back. I wasn't hoping they'd fix what they broke, and I wasn't angry anymore. I was ready. Because survival had taught me endurance, but clarity had taught me power. 2 weeks had passed. Stratwell was still standing, but barely. Industry chatter now referred to them in cautious tones, like a company under slow-motion collapse. Their leadership team had gone silent. Their PR department had issued a half-hearted press release blaming a misalignment of strategy and talent. But everyone knew the truth. You don't lose 5 deals in 2 weeks due to misalignment. You lose them when you forget that people, not policies, are your foundation. I hadn't said a word publicly. I hadn't commented, liked, or shared a single post. But the silence spoke louder than any headline. What came next, I hadn't planned for. It was a Wednesday afternoon, and I was heading into a meeting when my assistant, Danny, handed me a small white envelope. "No sender," she said, eyes narrowed. "Just this." I waited until after the meeting to open it. Inside was a handwritten note. "Ashley, you were right. I let the wrong people make decisions, and I let silence become my excuse. I hope, one day, you'll understand the pressure I was under. But more than that, I hope you understand how much I regret not protecting you when I should have. E." I stared at it for a while. Not out of emotion, just reflection. I wasn't angry anymore. And I didn't need his regret. Because while Stratwell had scrambled to do damage control, I had quietly finished onboarding 3 of the 5 clients, now under the umbrella of my new team at Elbridge and Rowe. Not because I poached them, but because they chose me. They chose trust, accountability, continuity. They chose something Stratwell had forgotten existed in the pursuit of faster numbers and louder titles. By the end of the month, Elbridge posted record Q2 growth. Industry newsletters credited the spike to unexpected client acquisitions and streamlined strategic leadership. They didn't name me. I didn't need them to. Because I'd already sat in the rooms that mattered. I'd already reviewed the contracts, seen the numbers, heard the gratitude and quiet phone calls that began with, "Ashley, we're glad you're the one we're dealing with." That was enough. I was sitting at my desk late one evening when Danny knocked again. "There's someone here to see you," she said. "Didn't schedule an appointment." I frowned. "Name?" She hesitated. "Rashid." That made me pause. Xenotech. I stood, adjusted my jacket, and walked out to the reception area. There he was, calm, composed, expensive watch on one wrist, silence like armor. "Rashid," I greeted, extending a hand. "Wasn't expecting you." He shook it. Didn't want to make it official, just wanted to say something, face to face. I waited. "You didn't fight dirty," he said simply. "You could have, but you didn't." "I wasn't raised like that," I replied. He gave a small nod. "I've worked in this industry long enough to know when I've seen something rare. You handled betrayal with restraint. You handled power with grace. Most people don't know how to do that." He reached into his coat and handed me a folder. "Our 5-year expansion plan," he said. "We want you involved, directly." I blinked. "Why me?" He smiled, a rare gesture. "Because you've already proven that you don't just close deals. You build relationships that survive after the contract ends." He left without waiting for an answer. I stood there for a long time, fingers resting on the folder. Not because I needed the win, but because I realized in that moment I had already won. Not by crushing anyone, not by shouting, but by remembering my value before anyone else did. That night, I walked through the office, quiet now, lights dimmed. My team had gone home. Their desks were filled with coffee mugs, sticky notes, and photos of kids and pets and lives being lived outside the 9-to-5 grind. I sat in the small conference room where we'd had our first strategy session. The whiteboard still had my notes scribbled across it. Trust, intent, accountability, not buzzwords, values. I picked up the marker and added one more. Legacy. Because that's what I was building now. Not just a career, not just a comeback, but a legacy that said, you can be powerful without being ruthless. You can be firm without being cruel. And you can walk away without burning it all down. Because sometimes the most radical thing you can do is succeed with grace.